All right, so I want to do another work-along tutorial for color match, but with a more complicated image. You can see the image here. If you're looking for this image, you can load it. I'm going to use the Control-I shortcut to load images. It's going to be in your HueForge tutorial images folder under VectorFrog. Now, on macOS or Linux, that is going to be in Documents HueForge tutorial images. On your PC, on Windows, it's going to just be in your HueForge folder under tutorial images. In the near future, I will be moving the Windows configuration files, etc., into your app data, so that when you come in with a new version, you don't have to worry about copying Filament libraries over, etc. That will be in the release of 8.0, the beta, not the beta anymore, the full release of 0.8.0. Okay, so we're going to open the vector frog. I've already done that here. And also, I prefer a different layout when I'm in the beta, because I don't really need some of these controls that I normally see, and I'd like to have more room. So I bring the general options and operations down and share it with the color sliders, and I bring the lighting down and I drop it in the middle here. Now, if you have a lower resolution desktop than I do, so I have desktop that's 2500 pixels wide. If yours is lower, you probably are going to have to drop this in the model geometry. It's not going to fit. Not going to let you dock it where I've got it here. But you can just drop it as a tab on the model geometry, and now you've got this whole big screen at the top to look at with the big image, and you can control your sliders in the middle, which is what I always do. So you'll see in future videos that this is how my screen looks, and that's what I did. Let's talk about a couple of features that have changed between Beta 1 and Beta 2. One of those features is that now when you drag a color from the image, so previously you drag a color from the image and you drag it anywhere onto a slider or anywhere, it's going to make it a TD of 1, right? But the TD of 1 is annoying if you're just trying to match a color better, and maybe you brought a filament in first and now you're like, oh, I want to match to this exact color, but I don't want it to be a 1 TD. I want it to be whatever TD the filament that I tried to use is. Well, so if you drag this directly onto a filament slider now, you'll see that it keeps the TD of the old filament, so 0.3. This one's still 0.3. Another new thing is we have this extra slider up here we don't need. Pressing Z will move it all the way to 0. That's a shortcut for 0. You can actually see that if you right-click on any of these sliders. They have a 0 slider option as well, and it's Z. All of these have their shortcuts next to them. The other thing you can do, one of those shortcuts you can see, is show TD. So showing TD also lets you edit the TD. So if I bring another color in, let's bring this color in here, and it's a TD of 1. Let's say I want it to be 1.5. I hit T, and then if I mouse wheel up, it goes up half a TD, and if I mouse wheel down, it goes down half a TD, and I can go up and down as I see fit. One new thing is also that the CLab color match method, these are all different color match methods, all different algorithms that color match differently. The CLab one is now by far the best. It's not always the one you're going to want to use, but it's by far the best. So looking at this image, the first thing I did was, if you notice, when I had the regular black here, it was kind of grayish. We were actually matching up above the black layer. You can see it was matching up higher. And that's because this isn't a true black. This is actually near black, but not true black. And this is a true black. So that's why I control-clicked. On Mac OS, it's going to be command-click. And you have to let go of command before you'll be able to drop it. So you'll command-click. See how it's got, on this case, it's got the no drop icon. It's going to have that icon as long as you're holding command. On Mac OS, you have to let go. And if you've already come over the slider or where you want to drop it, just let go of command, move off of that, and come back, and it will pick it up and grab it. And the drop will work correctly. Linux works the same as Windows, control-click and drag. Okay, so when I'm working on a more complicated color match like this, where I have a reddish purple area, I have a blue area, and I have a green area, I like to approach it by layering it in my head. How do I want to stack these layers? And some of that is going to be based on image context, but some of that's also going to be based on what can I easily blend together. So for instance, this green is a blue-green, so that's going to give me a hint that maybe I want to go from a dark blue into the greens, and so I don't really need to put I can do that. I can assume I can do that. I'm going to do dark blue into green, which means I'm probably going to want to go from white up to my dark blue. I'm going to want to blend up to my dark blue. And the reds are often in the bottom or below, so let's start that way. But I'm going to start with a red that's a real color. And I like to start with real colors whenever possible, because I find that it makes it easier in the end to switch back. But you'll see I dropped my color in here. This is something that confuses people a lot. I dropped my color in here, and this changed a little bit, but it's still grayscale. Why is that? Well, that's because over here we're saying that we want to show the colors on this color core. We're showing the color core colors and the color core match. We want to show the mesh core match, so we click this arrow. It'll switch over, and now it'll be showing the mesh core match. And now you can see where the red has come in. We've grabbed red and it's come in. Now we have these equal signs. What do these vertical equal signs mean? They mean that we have saturated our color here. This color here is saturated. It is fully red. This hasn't changed. This is effectively the same color from here to here to here. Now there's a little bit of tolerance there, so it might be ever so slightly different, but effectively it's the same color. So color match is always just going to match to the lowest value of that. It doesn't matter where your red is, it's always going to match that lowest value. So any extra equal signs here are more or less wasted. There are a couple of cases where they aren't, but they're basically wasted here. All right, so now we have this this red here. Now we want a purple. I mean, there is a purple here, and it might be very tempting to just grab a purple here and bring it in, but that's going to give us a lot of colors, and we can blend colors to make purple instead. And you know, red and blue make purple. So let's get a dark blue, and I'm using the filter box here to make it dark. Let's do a dark blue. We'll do the Bamboo Lab matte dark blue down here, and now we have our little bit of purple at the bottom. Given our min depth here, this is another important thing to notice. Notice that we're off the bottom here. The bottom here is either the lowest slider or it is the layer below min depth. So we're above min depth. That's because we're set to 0.52, and that's because our min depth is set to 0.4. I prefer it to be 0.48, so we're going to change that. It'll update. And now we're sitting here, and our black is right at min depth. You see we have one box here. There was a bug in the previous version that didn't always line that box up correctly, and we fixed that bug. All right, so we have our red. It comes in through a couple of shades and turns red. And then we want a yellow. So I always like to use the Jessie Premium Yellowbird because it is a really, really good yellow, and it also is a 4TD and won't get all weird in terms of color. So some yellows turn green when you print them. This one won't turn green, and it's not a matte. And so I really recommend checking out the Jessie Bird Yellow. Let's pull a green, or a white. We'll pull a King Rune white here so we get a good white. We don't need a lot here. We just need a little bit. Now we may come back and adjust this. We may add more colors here, but I'm going for the big picture idea right now, the large areas of the image, and then I'll worry about the small areas that might be a little bit different later. Now, I just moved this white up. Why did I move this white up? Well, because I'm realizing I'm going to need to blend up into blue now. And since I'm blending up into blue, I'm going to need this to be pretty white. For these are light blue, but I'm going to need them to be a pretty light color. And if this was too yellow, it wouldn't work. So I'm going to grab a blue. In this case, I think that we're looking for like an azure blue, probably the Polylight azure blue, because it's got a 3TD, so it will blend up. What does blending up mean? Blending up, and this is on HueForge Wiki. There is a wiki. It's still in progress, but there is a wiki. Blending up means instead of thinking about blending down to a color, like I'm going to lighten the shade of this color or adjust the shade of the color below me, I'm planning on getting a darker and darker color above me. So normally you're coming from a white or a light color, blending up to this new color. And I will say that in previous versions, this math was broken. This is something new in the beta 2, that I have fixed this blending math. It's actually fixed in 7.4 as well, because it was a literal just a bug in how the blending was calculated. This should be much more accurate to the real world. All right, so then we're going to also need our dark blue up here. I'm going to, again, control click or command click on Mac OS. Again, you'll need to release before it will work. And we can blend up to this dark blue. And now we have the legs looking more or less okay. I may tweak these a little bit, but they're more or less okay. Now you'll see we're running out of room. This is true. In color match, we're probably going to run out of room more often. So let's just make this bigger. We'll go to 3 max depth. And now we have more room to work with. I can go darker here on the blue. This is something we'll tweak over time. We'll start by going very dark. Gives us more depth in our blue section. Okay, and now we're going to blend our greens. So we're going to put a green on top of this blue, and that's going to give us our blend. So let's try putting the King Rune green on top of here and see what we get. It's not too bad. And then let's bring a yellow on top of that. And that actually gets us really darn close to the source image. And now it's a matter of degrees. There's some things we want to choose. One of the things we want to choose is, do we want our black at the bottom or do we want our black in the middle? We can move our black into the middle here. The problem with that is that we're basically going to want to go dark blue again to get this blend. And what's going to happen is then that all the red area is going to look recessed. Let me show you. We leave the dark blue at the bottom, that's fine. We bring our black up to the middle, and then we're going to bring our blue back up here again to give us our blend. Okay, now you see here that now you've traded. We were having kind of edges around the blue areas and the green areas. Those are gone. Now we have very small edges there, but now we have edges around the red area. We've basically traded we've traded having the black all the way at the bottom and then basically one set of edges up to the blue to having edges all around the red. And I think those are more jarring than in the middle. I will say that if you're going to put this in the middle here, this is one situation where you do want a saturation marker, a single one. But if you look, it's still always going to pick the lower value. And this is somewhere where we can do something where we disable a layer. You can actually write, it says here when you highlight it, that you hit D to disable layer for color match, or we can right click and disable layer. Either one will work. And now it will always pick this upper layer. And why do we want that? What's important here? The issue here is that color match will always pick, as I said, the lowest saturated layer. But when you're printing at 0.04 millimeter layers, oftentimes the first layer just doesn't cover enough to get a fully saturated black. Even though technically the blending should cover, it's just printing artifacts are going to cause you issues. And so as a result, what we do here is we disable this layer. What does disabling a layer mean? It means that for the purposes of matching color, and remember, color match goes through every pixel and says which layer in my mesh core matches the best, is the closest match. This basically says just skip that layer. Don't ever try to match it. So it will still be printed. There's still going to be two layers of black. They will be printed, but it won't ever match to that layer. But in this case, as I said, I don't think I like the black in the middle here because I think that this, in the middle of the body, is where we want the cleanest, smoothest blending, and we're going to get all these edges here. They are a little bit exaggerated, but we're going to get all these edges here. So I'm going to bring this back down to the bottom. And you'll see we have some edges here on the blue, but they're much less, I feel like they show up less. Now we're going to remove that there. Bring this green down a little bit. Now this is where it comes down to matters of preference. You can see here that there's little issues like here on the lip where it isn't totally matching the whole lip. If I zoom in here, you can see that it's not matching this part of the lip. That's matching down to the yellow. And I can try, here's where you can try to control click and bring this up here and say, I'm going to force this to match like right there. And that will fix that location, but now you see it's broken this location. This location is now matching up there rather than down at the bottom. And it's a trade-off game here where you're trying to figure out what the best matches are that don't take over where you don't want them to. Now I could try saying, well, let's just make this exactly the color that I need there. And that works better, but now the white, this section isn't quite right. So we'll grab that and move it down. So it's kind of, you'll see here now that this section, this white has now moved down to here. So there's a whole bunch of different trade-offs we're going to make effectively as we go and figure out where things should line up and where things should not line up. I am going to undo changing that in the yellow area and undo this. I think that this section of the mouth is just not that big of a section. It's not that important. And I'd rather have this patch be correct than this be correct. I will say that maybe we want to make this more green. And then we have issues here with the highlights. And the highlights are often going to be your biggest problem, is where the highlights are supposed to match. Let's bring this yellow here so that matches better there. Actually, here we've got it in pretty good shape. The only thing we're missing now is that these white sections are matching too low. And I think we don't actually need our white to be quite this strong here. I think that's a lot better. And now we just have this one patch that doesn't match right. It's not where we want it to be color-wise. So if we grab that exact color and bring it up here, maybe we can make this match properly. Yeah, that's not what we want. Let's It's got the TD we want. Let's undo that. We can come in here again, grab this color that's matching down low, and then we can raise the TD of it a little bit and see what we can get to match. That is looking a lot better. So we have just a couple of tiny specks here that aren't matching. I will have solutions to that in the future, but just a couple of tiny specks that aren't matching. And the rest of it seems to be matching pretty well. This may be the way to go. This is always the hardest part of doing a HueForge, especially when you have similar colors, is getting everything exactly the right place. I do have a solution coming for that. It will not be out in the first release. So, okay, we've got our colors picked here. Let's just say we're happy with it. You can also check, by the way, some of these other color match modes. They may match better or worse. This one here seems to be a little cleaner in some areas, but we got this inverted and that inverted right now. We can try dot product. Dot product is often really good when you have similar colors, and it is actually pretty good here. But I'm going to stick with a C-Lab. I think it's got better color in the main body, and these little tiny issue areas, I think you're pretty much going to print away. You're not going to see them very much. Now let's switch over to our color core. So of course now that we've actually set our mesh core, we need to match it to our color core. Now, what does that mean? What does matching it mean? It doesn't mean that these sliders on the mesh core need to be exactly the same. In fact, they probably won't be exactly the same. But we can start by moving the known colors over cleanly. So it's real easy to move some of these colors that are filaments over. Now, again, I picked filaments just for this part of the process, basically, so that this part of the process would be easier. But it doesn't have to be all filaments. So like here, for instance, we have a 4TD color that was the Jesse yellow, but you can also say find closest filament from here if you don't know what you want to use. And I don't have the Jesse yellow selected here, but let's go grab it. Jesse Premium Yellowbird here. We're going to drop that here. And then we'll grab it again and drop it down here because I know that's what this was as well. And here we have a pretty good looking image. Now here we might want to choose to move sliders just a little bit on the mesh core to see if we can get colors to match. Like here's not exactly where we want that color to be, but and like some small issues we might try to tweak. But this looks pretty good. Notice that we don't have to keep all these in the same place. Like maybe we want this a little bit more yellow, but we want to bring this green up a little bit more, so we have more green bleeding through. And we don't need this blue necessarily as high as it is, though I think it does give us a nice dark shade here. So we can tweak what this is going to look like here. And if we go down, the important thing here is now to look at the describe and see how many colors it is. This is using 7 colors. So we're only using 7 colors here, which means that we can easily fit within 2 AMS units, but it also gives us a little bit of leeway to decide that we want to do something a little bit different. Like maybe we want a little bit more of this magenta color here. So we might come in here and grab the magenta, the Polylight magenta here, and give it a couple layers so that you get a little bit more of this matching magenta. Or maybe we decide that magenta is not what we're interested in, but we're interested in a slightly different color of green. We maybe want to use the Filament Simply Green in here to give our lighter green. And we can choose how we want to blend that and adjust the colors there. Or we decide we want a different yellow here to get more green. Like we want a higher TD, like the Filament yellow here, to give us more of a light green color, or like, more of a greenish yellow rather than a solid yellow. So because we have a slot left effectively in our AMS, we can pick one more. So you'd have to choose which one you want. I think I actually like that magenta shift, so I'm going to bring that up here. Bring the green up a little bit here, and then I'm pretty happy with this. So this is what I would go ahead and print. And you've seen my print. I'll put a picture of that in the end. This is not exactly how I did it, and I'll show you. So if we go look in projects, and browse projects, we'll go up a directory here. Browsing projects is a new thing that's in HueForge, where you can now see what they look like. Here's the project that I actually printed. This is the one that I printed. I'm just gonna discard this, and I'll show you what was actually printed. This is what was actually printed in the end for the file that's actually on the file sites, but also is available in projects folder here for you to play with. And you'll see here, instead of using a magenta, I used a more solid red color to get to the color I wanted. But a lot of the stuff is very, very similar. And then here I used Premium Yellowbird as well. Hopefully this video is helpful to you. Hopefully this takes some of the guesswork out of how to do color match. Happy HueForging.